Welcome to Maps, Labyrinths, Mazes, Seeing Sounds, and Environments. It's been a bit since we've met, so I thought I would begin with a bit of a review. We had left off with a discussion of setting. Setting drives the plot. It tells us the when and the where of our plot lines, but as was illustrated in our last class, the when and where often dictates the how and the why. This can really change the tone and feeling of our plots. Comics allow us the ability to mix in a visual component with our descriptions. Take, for instance, this first series of panels depicting birds in the city scene. The rotation from frame to frame clearly indicates a bird's point of view. In the second image, the value of the two panels is created using a very somber blue, cream, and black. When the flattened superhero is introduced in the second panel, it is the only aspect of color. This creates a rather dismal tone to accompany what could prove to be either a somber storyline or a tongue-in-cheek joke. The next image shows a panel reliant upon an intersecting relationship. The color scheme is somber, and we are informed of where we are and what the mood is based on the text. Additionally, we become aware of the characters who are involved in this story. We know that the characters involved are either curators or installation workers at a museum, and that there has been some trepidation at their workplace based on the catastrophe line which starts the panel. Characters or setting. This segues nicely into the next top. Characters as setting. In the following two panels, we see the Pettus Bridge and a street scene. The bridge could be depicted at any point in time, however. The dialogue and the depiction of the characters makes it obvious that the time period falls within the civil rights movement. The dialogue in the panel to the right indicates that there was some sort of monster sighting. We understand the gravity of that situation more and more with the additional comments. The following two images are from the science fiction satire Transmetropolitan. Without too much knowledge of the title, we can gather that we are in some futuristic timeline, and that people no longer have the same physiology as they once did. The Kirby Crackle bedazzled fight scene allows us another opportunity to feel a setting out. We feel a bit of tension with the large group of villains. They black out the background, and so become the space which fills the panel. Okay, so setting can once again behave as more atmospheric than chronological plot device. We are aware of the dark city and Spider Jerusalem's point of view from above it. He is a journalist and he sees the city as it is. The warm tones and the lighting in the landscape allows a setting of a bucolic scene. The wordless comic panel grows busier and busier, crowding the frame more and more, and really giving us the feeling of claustrophobia that the more urbanized locale indicates. The variation in color helps to determine the passing of time in this illustration of the field. The choice to use black and white in a comic is also descriptive. The environment feels cold and looming in the detailed patterning in the black and white panel. Meanwhile, the last two panels feel almost ethereal. There is something mysterious about Sam and Twitch and their exploits within the city. Alright, maps and labyrinths. Maps can help to tell us a story. First, by allowing us to gain our bearings in a world in which we are reading. This can be helpful from a more logistical standpoint, allowing our readers to comprehend the world and enhancing our suspension of disbelief, and ultimately allowing the world to be more immersive. Maps can also tell us about the characters, however. When we think about The Hobbit, perhaps one of the more famous fictitious maps comes to mind. Created by Thorin the Dwarf, the map uses dwarven runes and calligraphy suggestive of the different peoples inhabiting various locales within Tolkien's world. Cartographers and geographers have toyed with the theory that the written word serves as its own geographer, meaning that in telling a story, the account which we read creates the backdrop mapping of whatever environment we are in. So too, the graphic nature of comics and the spatial and meta-awareness which we are already working with help to develop the environment, atmosphere, and location. We are led to believe what we read and see rather than what we suspect we know based on a map. This is helpful because we can bend the reader's idea of a space. For instance, in Superman can span his location in Metropolis to the Eiffel Tower to save Lois, or to Arizona to stop an earthquake, and ultimately fly around the Earth backwards to change time. Our idea of that geography is warped to understand the story in terms of Superman. Cutaways and diagrams. Cutaways and exploded diagrams offer another unique bit of storytelling. Not only does this help to map details out within a story, but it can serve as another tool to communicate the personality of a location. In this first illustration from a zine page, we are introduced to the author's apartment in a page reliant on an aspect-to-aspect relationship. The various broken items serve as artifacts to tell the story of the apartment. We can either wonder about the story behind the objects breaking, or view the apartment as a whole with a number of broken items. The Shield Medical Clinic is large, elaborate, and very secret. As a result, we see the above-ground building and also the labyrinthian interior with its very specific zones. Similar to that is the Shield Helicarrier illustration. The sheer details delivered in the labels makes the thing seem more mechanical, and we are still made aware of how technical this ship is by its overwhelming amount of description. Meanwhile, the Chris Ware panels communicate the entire storyline through the details in the mapped out diagrams. The first includes text labels, while the second relies entirely on images, but both communicate in relatively the same way. Finally, in the Two Families Circus comic strips, the path which Billy took almost becomes its own character, acting within the strip. We view his travel as a personality unto itself. Okay, Labyrinths. Labyrinths present their own very complicated psychology. People are generally concerned when they do not know which way to go. We identify with characters who are stuck in a maze. In this way, a visual maze adds another level to a confused character. In the Rick and Morty panel, we can see the characters lost in the labyrinth and surrounded by hard-to-surpass mountain ranges. The illustration is intentionally over the top. Meanwhile, in the Percy Jackson panel, the characters are running over the top of the labyrinth. The characters have escaped part of their peril, only to face another evil in the dark cloud spirit swirling overhead. The scene from Thor reads as more time-consuming than anything else. Thor, quite obviously, can make small work of his foes, but there are so many paths and so many creatures that it almost seems like a tedious task to go through them. Lastly, this week we will be talking about images as sound. The idea behind images as sound is that we stop an image or suspend emotion in such a way that we are immersed in what that sound might be. We can look at something and actually hear it. For instance, in this scene of Kong fighting a dinosaur, we have enough cultural knowledge of what each of these creatures sounds like that the very motion that Kong is making and the dinosaur's open mouth give an idea of what noises would be going on. We know that it would be loud and shrieking. We know that King Kong would have this thump, 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 thump accompany. We are, when it comes to this, very dependent upon a cumulative consciousness, though. We depend on the movies that we've seen and the television that we've watched and the things that we've heard in person. Next, we have Hulk tossing rocks and boulders. We can again hear the thumping of rocks and noises which we associate with Thor. We also know exactly the kind of noises that Hulk makes anyway. We anticipate that in one of the panels nearby he will say something extremely brilliant like Hulk smash, etc., etc. Finally, we end the week with this rocket ship. The flames and smoke screen disappear towards the top of the panel, implying this Doppler sort of effect of a shrieking, exploding rocket with ship noises. Okay, So your assignment this week, which is written later on the content page, is to create 3 separate first pages of a comic. You're going to again use the same character in the same setting. So it's going to be in the same place at the same time with the same character, but you're going to set 3 very different tones. So maybe you could make one a drama, you could make one humorous, you could make one a rom-com. I don't know. But it would have these same characters in the same space. And how do you change that? Do you change the color? Do you change the way that you're drawing? Do you write give that character like more of a witty sort of grin or something? Just think about the different ways that you can kind of set the tone of a character. Um, but then, in addition to that, I want you to also use a map or a labyrinth, and also a a visual as a sound. In 2 out of the 3. The third, you can do whatever you like. Just as long as it has that same character, same setting, and it depicts a tone. Okay? So if you have any questions, please email me. I gave you my number during the Zoom conversation. You're welcome to call or text. Remember, no calls after 5. All right. Have a good week, and I hope everything is awesome for you. Thank you.